welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program. You know that most of the programs that you hear, I go through about a minute and a half litany of information that is important, but I'm going to delay that because I want to jump right in to my very special guest, Dianne Collins, returning guest. Love having her on the program because of the conversation we have, especially when it comes to quantum thinking. Do you quantum think? That's a good question. And, the answer, if it's not yes, it should be I will be as soon as I get a copy of Do You Quantum Think? It's the new way of thinking that'll rock your world. Dianne, welcome back to Tell Me Your Story. I can hardly wait to find out what it is we're going to be talking about.
Me too. Thank you so much, Richard. It's always just a complete sheer delight to be with you.
Well, I have to say it's the same here. We have had some incredible conversations, and there are a couple of interviews that are already up on my YouTube channel. For those who are not aware, we are on YouTube. The channel is, of course, Tell Me Your Story, where you can watch as well as listen to these interviews. All of them that I've put up thus far, around about 140, since. Well, actually, it's been about a year since I've been posting the interviews via Zoom. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've sort of reinvented myself too, Dianne. When we last talked, I wasn't doing video editing. I am now, and it's a lot of fun. It really is. Okay, so for those who are just joining you for the first time here on Tell Me Your Story, who have not listened to any of the other interviews that you and I have done in the last, I want to say the last year or so, year and a half maybe, let us define first and foremost what quantum thinking is versus the good old regular thinking. Compare and contrast, if you would, please.
The good old regular day. Okay. I want to say it a little bit differently today, Richard, that QuantumThink it's a system of thinking. I will give a description, not to keep people in suspense, but that it is a system of thinking comprised of 21 principles, which I call distinctions in new thinking, and practices for the mind and awareness that are based in a new foundation for thinking. And the new foundation for thinking is the more expanded and up-to-date worldview that is based in the assumptions of cutting-edge science, let's call it quantum, okay? And merging once again, because they were never separate, with spiritual wisdom that is universal and common to all mastery traditions. And what is my part? And putting that all together and making it practical, livable, modern wisdom that we can use. So it's a system of these principles. But what I wanted to say in a slight, and it's based in, let me say the premise. The premise is that we're in a quantum age, but we're still thinking from industrial age assumptions, beliefs, ideas. So you said, what's regular thinking? Well, that way of thinking, which is about a 400-year-old worldview, also known as scientific materialism or classical mechanical worldview, because it gave rise, that thinking gave rise to the industrial age of machines. So quantum think is not about science. It's about how the discoveries of science, how these assumptions have shaped the way we think, and how we can, of our own volition, update ourselves so that we can take a literal, and I do mean a literal quantum leap in consciousness and start to think from a more expansive, more accurate worldview. So the regular view, so that's really the premise, is that was what I call my revelation, that we imagine we think freely and independently. And of course, we all want to think of ourselves that way. And yet we don't, to the extent that we cannot make a distinction between what's shaping our thinking, whether we're okay, so let me say it this way. If thinking creates reality, which it does, and you don't have to be into esoteric, 5D dimensional reality thinking to know this, because we say, oh, let's think about this in a new way, right? Just in a very ordinary, everyday way, logical way, rational logic. Our habits of thinking are generating our actions and therefore all of our results. And so when you look at this and you say, well, if thinking creates reality, what's creating our thinking? And that was my revelation, is that thinking, like everything in the universe, takes place as a system. And the system is based in the prevailing worldview. So again, quantum thinking is getting yourself up to date, like a new framework, a new perspective, a new foundation for thinking, in what I like to think of as an entertaining and easy way of doing it. Like I thought, let me just put this all together and make it easy for people, because it's addressing those universal principles that are the core of our own being. So when people read it or listen to it, or I have a video program also, watch it, it's that what's happening is it's activating that expanded thinking, that expanded consciousness in each of us. And I'm doing it in a way that I articulate it in a way that it becomes what I like to say, my quest and my purpose in life is to have us as a humanity go from knowing the wisdom to living it. And just two other things on it in my preliminary. Every time you ask me, I think, okay, what am I going to say this time? But it's really from my heart and soul and sincerity. This is, I want to say it in a way that people can relate to it. So it is a mastery practice. And that's what I want us to really delve into today, because I've been listening to some of your recent shows, and I know that you're philosophical, but more than philosophical, and it's about living the wisdom. And this is what's needed in our world, because let's face it, as you say, and we know, it's never really been that. So, and when you usually say at the beginning of your shows that tell me your story is to present tools that people can use. And QuantumThink is a tool for us to attain personal mastery, command of our own state of being, command of our own mind. I say the mantra, unofficial mantra of QuantumThink is, when you master your mind, you master your life. Mind meaning not the cognitive part, click, 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 but mind meaning what we hold in awareness, what we hold in consciousness. Because what we are aware of, what we are conscious of, is our reality in that moment by moment. And what we habitually hold, we do, of course, affect, the body mind, so that we're making those brain connections, and this becomes habitual. So one other thing about the contrast, the distinction with, quote, regular thinking, is that the industrial age thinking, it has oriented us, the scientists of the 17th century, and they said only physical matter is real. And so everything has oriented us around the ordinary five senses. So even though we know we're spiritual, we have souls, we connect to divine, whatever that is for any of us personally, and we know we have this multidimensional reality, but as a matter of habit, and I'm speaking, generally speaking, obviously there are, sometimes everybody's quantum thinking, whether they call it that or not, we go back and forth into that deeper reality that is more of what you would call the truth of existence. And we go back and forth between that and the automaticity that I say, blame it on the lovingly called old worldview, the industrial age worldview, because we're not trading one in for another. We're expanding. So that's what the difference is. That was a matter, I'll say it very simply. We're taking that paradigm shift from thinking from a matter-based reality, physical-based reality, to a mind-based reality by acknowledging and honoring mind to mind and mind to matter real influences, connections. And so that's, I'm saying it in different ways, but those are some of the differences. But I think, again, going back to, and I want to hear what, of course, you have to say about that, to me, it's like, what was that thing with the Me Too, but it was like time's up thing. For me, it's, okay, that's some people, I don't want to talk about that, but just that expression, for me, time's up. It's time for every one of us to actually choose a life of self-mastery. And that, to me, is what this whole transition into this new age, the Aquarian age, where we're seeing the breakdown of the old, all the divisiveness that seems to be actually insane in many ways, and looking at it from the larger cosmic perspective of an evolutionary leap that is really depends on each one of us to take that conscious leap ourselves, but not just it's to awaken, but it's also to master ourselves. Because until we can get past our automatic reactions and judgments and this and that, and, and all the things that we know how we don't want to be, when we can achieve a command, a presence of mind, a presence of being, living the wisdom of our spiritual nature. This is what, to me, it's about. Am I hearing you? Wait, I can't hear you.
Our guest is Dianne Collins, and Dianne Collins is our guest here on the program. Her website, DianneCollins.com. The book is called Do You Quantum Think? And we are going to continue our conversation with Dianne as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, and we hope that you will stay with us as we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. As I also say, looking for those new ways of living, because obviously the old ways don't work. All you have to do is look around you. It doesn't take much. Dianne, what you brought to mind was rather interesting to me, especially considering the fact that I have this book right here. Okay, and it is called, and you can't, there we go, we'll try to get a shot of it there. It's called The Impersonal Life. Going back to 1916, Joseph Banner, who channeled this particular work. You talked earlier in the first part of our program about this aspect of thinking, and then posed the statement or question, of how our thinking is framed, if you will, or or where it comes from. And what's fascinating and why I bring up this book, The Impersonal Life, is because it talks from the standpoint of, I'll use the term, the divine. The divine is talking to us through this gentleman, Joseph Banner, 1916, speaking to us one-on-one. You who read this, and so forth and so on. And then it talks about thinking. And it says, you who are reading think that your ideas are your ideas, when in fact they're mine. And I let you think that they're yours, but they aren't. As well as other constructs that are talked about in this particular book. And by the way, this actual book that I carry that has this new spine on it, this book is 40 years old. It was given to me on my 21st birthday by a dear friend of mine who has since passed, and her name is Ramona, and she gave this book to me on my birthday that year, my 21st year. I have carried it with me ever since. The spine got all busted up, so I took it and I had it rebound and put a spiral in there, so now I can fold it without worrying about it busting. But it is most fascinating because it actually addresses, and we're talking about over 100 years earlier than your book, Do You Quantum Think, about where we come from, who we really are, why we are here. I even addresses reincarnation, says you think that when you go into, you do a reincarnation regression therapy, hypnosis, that you're tapping into other lives that you have lived, when in fact, you are tapping into the other manifestations of my manifestations. Again, this is the divine speaking.
Right.
And so this takes us to another level that you also mentioned, and that is our intuition. Now, this is one of the things I usually say at the front end of the program, that we ask people to participate in the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, where we ask people to go within, to listen to that still small voice in that quiet, peaceful place, to get inspiration, to get encouragement, to get guidance, to relax, to find peace, and even to use your word, and I love this word, equanimity. Talk to us about this concept, the QuantumThink concept that you have developed, that you have created, and its relationship to that still small voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say something about that book and the divine saying, wait, it's not your thought, it's my thought, because this is something, and it will bring us into the specifics of your question, Richard, but something I've thought about quite a bit, and that is free will and determinism. And, in university, I was a philosophy major. You talk about such things. It's always an either or. That's the old worldview thinking. But I think, well, what is it that we can say for certain? And of course, Rene Descartes was, he said what he could say for certain is, I think, therefore I am. But I'm not going there, because that was part of the reason we have the mind-body split, which isn't really a split. It's distinct, but not separate. That's a part of quantum thinking. There are distinctions in life, but no actual separations. But anyway, getting back to this, what could we actually say for sure? I thought about this my whole life, and I think, well, we could say there's creation. Well, as you said, where does it come from? And in this channeled book that is beautiful, that you're carrying it all this time, and obviously a very big important aspect of your own evolutionary awareness that you say, okay, there's creation. Okay, so there is some source. Not everybody uses the word God, as we know. We like to use the word divine. I like the word God. It's like a catch-all. Not for everybody, again, not for Buddhists, but we'll say that there's creation. So is everything for us predetermined? Well, I say in Do You QuantumThink, I don't think that we're, puppets. So there's creation. And then if you even think of it in terms of we're made in the image of God, let's use divine just to make everybody hopefully happy, that we have been granted in some everyday worldly sense the power to create. And so when you look at, are we determined, is there, and we know that because I like the mystic arts and I like to study astrology, which is the astrological wheel is, quote, a blueprint, a soul, SOUL blueprint. And you look at it, and what is it? Well, it's tendencies, it's predilections, it's talents that you can develop. But whether you do or not, what you do with those talents, gifts, predilections, is up to us. So it's the both and. Quantum thinking is a both and thinking, that we're both the individuation of God, that book, right? It's like somebody, whoever the author is, well, let's say the author is telling the author, right? The divine author is telling the worldly author, you think they're your thoughts, but they're my thoughts. And this is part of the both and, is that we could think of as one mind. And what is the mind? The mind of divine. But we become individuations of the divine mind. And the old story, as it was said, in the beginning, God was one, but he got bored. So he differentiated and he made the many. So yeah. It's, I like to think of it as we'll never know all the answers for sure. But the interesting thing is, it's like, why do we like mysteries, right, in entertainment? It's like the divine made the ultimate mystery. It's like, we'll never really know, even though in some ways we do have knowledge, or we do feel something that is sacred, that is spiritual, that is real, that is emotional, that we experience. And at the same time, can we really explain all the whys and wherefores? Maybe not. So I forgot your question, but because when you were talking about the book, it did remind me about that, is that if you think, oh, I know why I brought it up, because you look on the world and you say, okay, are there bad people? I mean, I talk to people who actually think there are, quote, evil people, Personally, I don't hold that in my reality. I hold it as, I heard you talking about the other day on your show with someone about, it's the play of consciousness. Maybe they had to act that out. Somebody had to act out the murder or the this, that. But to me, it's that we are at a time of an evolutionary leap in consciousness for the collective of humanity, because everything evolves, which means goes to the higher form. So it is said that our whole galaxy is going to a higher frequency, a higher light, right? Form of light. That our Earth is also in that, Earth is a living entity. Earth is evolving. And that every single one of us, this is our path, is to evolve. And you could say to total self-realization, God realization, or just going to the next higher form of ourselves. So if you look at this collectively and you say, well, can we get to a place that is actually transcends good and evil? Now, from what I've read, studied, heard, intuited, I think there have been individuals, I know there have been philosophers who, beyond good and evil, that there's a good that's beyond good and evil, that duality. But I think, well, we've created collectively this reality. Now it's going to like the full tilt boogie of the good and evil, right? What if we can literally take a leap to transcend that story, right?
Yeah.
Let's not tell that story anymore.
What story? It's boring.
Would we be telling? Right?
It's boring.
It's boring.
Yeah. We're talking with Dianne Collins. DianneCollins.com is the website. And QuantumThink. Do you quantum think? Hopefully after the end of this program you will. And we're going to continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Dianne Collins is my guest, and fascinating conversation that we are having. You know, you've brought up a number of things that I want to dovetail off of. You've already mentioned the one mind. I was going to actually bring that up, but boy, it's like, you know where I'm going because we are of one mind. And the duality aspect.
That's true. I just want to say, that is actually true.
Yeah.
That's one of the distinctions in QuantumThink. One of the principles is called being in one conversation. Anyway, go ahead.
And now you have to ask yourself the question, if we are connected to that one mind, if we are linked and we are consciously aware, maybe that is the true definition of telepathy. That we're not actually exchanging thoughts, we're tapped into the same thoughts of the one mind. All right, so let me go on to the duality concept and see what you think of this. Now, I've probably mentioned this to you before, but I will share it with you and our listeners again. I have struggled with the whole concept of duality. The ancient wisdom teachings tell us where we come from, the one. The ancient wisdom teachings tell us where we're going to, the one. So I say, then what in the Sam Hill are we doing here in this dualistic world? What's the point? Okay, well, it's a rhetorical question. Here's how I make peace with the quote-unquote duality, which is of the old way of thinking. When you look out into the universe, look through the Hubble telescope. I grew up on Hubble Street when I was a kid. I can't even say it. Hubble telescope. And you you see the universe doing its thing. Supernovas exploding. Asteroids and meteors and comets flying around and crashing into this and that and the other thing. New stars made and old stars collapsing and black holes and all of this stuff. And what is your typical reaction as a human being? Ooh, wow. Now, We go to the subatomic particle level and we look at all of the stuff moving around and crashing into one another and doing this and dividing and subdividing and multiplying and on and on and on. Basically, as above, so below. And we go, ooh, ah, wow, isn't that I wonder why it's that. That's bizarre. But then when we come to our level of living, it's either, oh, wow, this is great, or, oh, my God, get me out of here. Okay? Now, the universe at the macro and micro levels is doing what? What the universe does. There is no judgment. There's no plus or minus. There's no good or evil. And then I'll add one more point to this. In the New Testament, the passage reads, "Be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." What the heck is perfect? What does that mean? So I've read the Bible a number of times, and I'm thinking, okay, well, let's go back to the Old Testament, God is neither good nor evil. He's neither right nor wrong. God is just, if it is even a he, God is just God. The divine is just the divine. And in the Old Testament, in the Psalms, it talks, I am, even in the impersonal life, it says, I am that I am. So to be perfect is to what? To be. Not good, not evil, not right or wrong, not white or black, not up or down, not left or right. It's just to be. So if that's the case with the Creator, the divine, that the divine is not dual only in our books. By the way, wisdom, truth, is only truth until it is written down. Okay, put that aside. So that's kind of where I come from when it comes to the whole concept of duality. There isn't any duality except in our own minds. We are the ones who pass judgment on what happens outside of us.
Well, this is why I was bringing up the point about mastery, and the idea that there's creation, right? Mm-hmm. There's being.
Yeah.
And being is creation. And we have the opportunity to create at the extent to which a human being can create. We're creating our worldly life on earth mm-hmm. with one another. So to your point about there's no absolute reality around duality, right? We live in duality. People say we need the contrast because that's what enables us to see, right? You need the dark so you can see the light, etc. But mm-hmm. the point, I think the bigger point now is that we have choice. And so the reason I brought up about, are there really, just people that are just evil? No, it's there in the quantum physicists, and I'm actually learned this from one of them, Amit Goswami, and they talk about the possible world and the actual world. The possible world has existence. The possible world is infinite possibility. So when you say, what is God? The reason that we can't say what is God cannot be defined because it's infinite beyond what our mind in a given moment, in the finiteness of our mind in a given moment. Our mind is infinite, but in a given moment, the finite, we can never define it. And so we all relate in different ways, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you like chocolate, I like vanilla. You like Buddha, I like Jesus. Whatever. It's not even a like. It's that for whatever, we're drawn to that figurehead that represents the presence of God on earth.
Yeah.
So to the extent that we talk about self-realization or having choice, or what I call awakened thinking, awakened awareness, because there's awareness and then there's awakened awareness. Awakened awareness is awareness beyond any automatic conditioning. beyond any automatic beliefs that you were brought up with. I did an Instagram post. Can you think beyond your own beliefs? Because we do have preferences, we do have beliefs. However, to live in a transcendent state is the state of mastery, because from that state we can choose. So even if you're brought up, now there's, the big thing that is in the public narrative right now about racism and these things. But let's say everybody's a racist, in some way or another. I don't believe that, of course, but I'm just saying the narrative is crazy out there. And does it mean that it's not real and valid that we have bias, we have prejudice? Yes, we do. And so if we can choose a state of mastery, even if you automatically feel some kind of reaction to someone who looks different than you do, who thinks different than you do, who holds a different political view than you do, we don't have to be stuck with it. And I think this is the what we're here for now, is to move into a state to, and I want to get back, that reminded me of what you were saying about connecting, is that in an infinite possibility universe, infinite possibility being the number 3 of 21 distinctions in the QuantumThink system, that everything is infinitely possible in the possible world, in the world that is not yet manifest. That's the possible world. So the question is, what becomes manifest? Now, as human beings, consider that we are the possibility of every and all human traits, meaning the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sublime, right? Now, the question is, and this is an aspect of quantum thinking, which is why it's a mastery practice and why it's important. What are you going to manifest? Because the idea is the old worldview, the industrial age worldview, wanted to, it was like, if you think of it, wanted to predict and control nature. If we could figure out what, matter is, get it down to its constituent parts, how does it work together in a cause and effect mechanical way, then we could control everything. So in a way, we're very much conditioned to want to think of things as static and fixed. And that's the way it is. So map that onto, like, oh, my husband, oh, he's just self-centered. That's the way it is. And he's never going to change, or, oh, we have hunger in the world. No, it'll never change. We'll always have war. This is not quantum thinking.
No.
This is where we want to take the leap from. Because as you were bringing up in the one mind, and you were talking about telepathy, what are we actually doing? I think of it like, the internet, of course, is the perfect extension of us, the perfect metaphor of mind, because you're not traveling.
No.
You're connecting.
Right.
So if you think of one mind of infinite possibility universe, what is going to be your manifest reality? Well, whatever you choose or automatically react to, whatever you choose to connect to. And this is something that is, when you actually get this, like, oh, wow, do we have to go through, years of therapy? I'm not putting it down, but maybe it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Maybe, as one of my great meditation masters who has passed to the other side said, you want to know how to not be angry? Don't be angry. And as I wrote, in the West, it's like, we don't want to believe that. No, let's go into analysis. Why am I angry? Oh, because, my mother was angry when I was a kid. And then I had a teacher that was angry, or somebody told me I was angry and I believed it. The fact is, and then we have, right, as I lovingly call the consciousness crowd, of which we are, where you say, oh, be in the moment, the spiritual wisdom, be in the moment. There's only the here and now. There is nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you take that to heart, the truth of it, and you live that wisdom, you literally can just not be angry. And I work with my husband, Alan Collins, master QuantumThink coach, and we've delivered, quantum thinking programs to corporations, to entrepreneurs, just public thing, for years and years. This is, more than 20 years. I hate to say the number of years because how old am I? Let's just say we've been doing it successfully for a number of years. And it's like that book. Yes, thank you, divine source, for allowing this to come through me. How does it work? It works. And the reason it works is because it is universal wisdom that comes from divine source, that I've been given the gifts of being able to articulate for people in such a way that it activates and they can start living it. So what I was going to say is, this simple thing. Oh, you want to know can you really shift your state in an instant, in this moment? Yes, you can. And we have seen our clients do it over and over again. Mm-hmm. We've seen it.
Yeah. This is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan. She is Dianne Collins. DianneCollins.com is the website. And you are listening to New Paradigms for a New World. As we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true here on the program every Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Mondays at 1 a.m., and our special edition of Tell Me Your Story, Wednesdays at 9 a.m., a new addition to the Tell Me Your Story lineup. But we also have podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We're also on YouTube, where you can watch and listen to these interviews. We hope that you will subscribe either or both to the podcasts as well as the videocast. The channel on YouTube is Tell Me Your Story. And we hope that you will take advantage of that as we continue our conversation here on Tell Me Your Story with Dianne Collins, here as we speak of new paradigms for a new world and QuantumThink. And I'm Richard Dugan, your host. And Dianne, I wanted to ask you as we continue here on the program about this aspect of we have 8 billion people on the planet. Maybe as this conversation is being heard, there are now a total of 8 billion plus, okay? I mean, and it makes me think, in light of what you said earlier, of a film I saw in school. They showed this film to us to help us to understand what a hologram was. They had this sheet of glass, it was specially treated, and they took this photograph and they impressed it upon the glass, and you could rotate it and turn it, and it was three-dimensional. Then they broke the glass, and every piece of glass had the whole image in it. And so it gets me to wondering about the fact, we talked about the one mind And then the connection. I love the fact that the internet is an outer manifestation of our interconnectedness. And the fact that each of us as individuals has a different role to play in this world. And going back to your other point, too, about the fact that each one of us has all of the same potentiality, but not necessarily manifesting all of those elements of potentiality. We only manifest certain ones that, shall we say, serve us in this given lifetime. Okay? I'm not going to manifest the attributes that you manifest and vice versa, or that your husband manifests, or and so forth. And it's the same thing with the material world in terms of people wanting stuff. I think of, for example, The Secret, and how, law of attraction, and I'm bringing it in. And, well, not everybody wants the same thing. So there's more than enough for everybody. And so when you use the analogy of the hungry on the planet, we don't have to have the hungry. No, we do not kill them off, okay? This is not the Purge, okay? Or the Hunger Games. We feed them. There is more than enough on this planet. It's the distribution, as I say, that's the problem. But that aside, if we can imagine a world with or without, I love John Lennon's song. I know a lot of people have a problem with it. Imagine there's no religion. Well, you know what? I like to use the phrase philosophy, the word philosophy. Because even if there were no religion, there would still be a philosophy, and each one of us would have our own. So now there are 8 billion different philosophies on the planet. And we use the analogy of the circle and the points on that circle, and there's an event taking place in the middle of that circle. What I want is to be able to move around that circle to different points to get a different view so that I can get as broad a perspective of what that event is all about. You've heard this saying about a car accident? You can have 10 people watch this car accident. You go interview each one of them, you're going to get 10 different answers. But none of them are wrong. It's just their perception from their perspective. So
Exactly.
When we start talking about QuantumThink, this is where we're headed. Where does the phrase, we create our own reality fall? In the old way of thinking or in the new QuantumThink? Or somewhere in the middle?
That's a very interesting question. And we create our reality. Well, I don't know that it falls into one or the other. I think that from ordinary rational thinking, which again, we're not trading one end for that end for quantum thinking. It's an expansion because you brought up a hologram. The very first principle in QuantumThink is called holistic and holographic. That we're in a universe of whole systems, but we've been brought up to think in parts and compartmentalizing, spirit and matter, but everything is one connected whole with infinite differentiation. So distinctions, but no actual separation. So when you say, we'll create our reality, well, if you were thinking from a worldview that's physical matter related, so it would be, for example, well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Uh-huh.
Evidence-based reality, okay? So it's not, so again, as you say, 8 billion people, 8 billion perspectives, 8 billion ways that we relate to reality, or philosophy, 8 billion philosophies is just saying. So it's like, it depends. And it really is about how you choose to be related to what you know, because from the old world, industrial age, scientific materialism worldview, creating reality, the method and the understanding of it would be different. It's that you have to push or pull on circumstances to get something to happen, for example. So it's not like we're actually thinking, oh, I'm thinking from an industrial age worldview, or I'm thinking from a quantum age worldview. It's in the background of the culture.
Yeah.
So it's shaping us, it's conditioning us. But when you have it as a distinction, that is to bring it into your awareness in the present in such a way that you have choice, that you can see all aspects of it. So if you say you create your reality from a QuantumThink perspective, and of course, I have quite a few chapters in my book. By the way, I did want to mention my name is spelled with two N's. So if you look up Dianne Collins with one N, it's a photographer. But if you look up Dianne Collins with two, it's me.
There you
anyway,
go.
You mentioned it a few times, so thank you for letting me say that. But so Do You QuantumThink, the book is in two parts. Part one, wake up. I'm a little bit maverick myself. So it's like, oh, you want me to quantum think? Why should I? And it's all about our situation as a humanity, and chapters about these different worldviews, how it shapes us, wisdom, mastery, mind. These are in light stories all about the 4,200 literally that I found in my research, recorded different religions and philosophies and that are actually registered in this world.
Yeah.
So one religion, no, 4,200 plus. So when you look at, and then part two of the book is, oh, I'm not just saying you should quantum think. Here, you can. Here's the system. So in the system, that's the part two, the 21 distinctions of the quantum think system, that we're talking from, as you say, all these different perspectives on how we create reality. And if you study the science and if you study the wisdom traditions, including religious traditions, in the beginning there was the word. And so when you start to get a real understanding of, well, how do we create reality? And you start to realize that sound, resonance, say frequency, everybody's like, oh, everything is energy. Well, okay, that's right. There's an energetic dimension. There's a physical dimension. There's a spiritual dimension of the heart. I distinguish 7 different dimensions: the esoteric of the soul, the divine. But when you look at the cosmic dimension and you look at these laws of the universe, that sound comes into formation. And there are all these different ways of looking at it through sacred geometry, form. There was a Bulgarian master who I started reading, Omram Mikhail Ivanov from Bulgaria. He's passed on. And a friend of mine turned me on to a lot of his books. And he says, so I reference him several times in my book. He says, if you have a thought, like you meditate on a word for like a concept for a long time, deeply, you will see a geometric shape. It takes form. So you think, well, how does it do, so when you say thought, we create reality, well, are we pushing reality around, in the old world view? whatever circumstances we have to manipulate ourselves around it, kill it off if we don't like it, or, ignore it, or whatever. That would be that matter-based way of creating reality, where in QuantumThink way of creating reality, you realize that it's infinite possibility. We've been given what I call the 5 natural faculties of mind that are the dynamic tools of creation for human beings that we're born with by virtue of human divine gift, by a human birthright: intent, intuition, subtle energy, resonance, and meditation, which I consider a natural faculty, a state, like you talked about, that stillness, that inner, and they all relate together. So thought, in the form of intent, and I consider intent not a future goal like intention, but intent and activation of your personal resonant field that takes infinite possibility and narrows it down into a probability wave field, so that from a statement of intent, because it makes your life and your goals more specific, that you will, if you can conjure that resonant field for yourself. We're doing it all the time, by the way, either on, and we call it an unaware state or an aware state.
Yeah.
We're always some resonance, right? We're always attracting something. Or as I say, you wake up on a bad hair day and then you attract, one calamity after another. Or, you wake up on a bad hair day and you say, you know what, I'm a quantum thinker. Okay, let that reality go back into the void. And what do I want to create today? I usually create every day. I have it written down, but I think of it. Today is a glorious day. And so intent as a creation dynamic, the active dynamic of creation that we've been given, intent, it's not true or false, getting back to the either or, right? The dualistic. It's neither true nor false. So this is creating reality in a quantum domain. It is a chosen context. It's a context that I am choosing to live from for today, because I don't have to be at the effect. I don't have to be a victim of whatever automaticity of emotion that I woke up into. I am not stuck with that. And this is a very important from a quantum worldview. There are no fixed realities, because reality is energy in flux, intelligent, informed, right? Energy. And so and it's always shifting and changing. So it becomes a question of, again, what are we going to focus on? And that you're not stuck. Now, it's not Pollyanna. It's not like, oh, well, that doesn't exist, Or wait, I want $1 million. Why isn't it in my hand right now if these things are real? Because it doesn't work that way. In the physical, I think I remember Deepak Chopra saying, it takes a little bit longer for the physical to manifest. But you know what? We can instantly manifest in the non-material domain of relational fields where most of our life takes place.
Right.
Relation to other people, relation to ourselves, relation to our pets. In that area, it can be an instantaneous shift. And that's why the Guru Master said, you want to know how to not be angry? Don't be angry. Because if you can be in that transcendent state where all masters live, while still fully engaging in the richness of whatever roles we play in this worldly, beautiful play of life on this sparkling planet, then you can choose. You can choose another state.
Mm-hmm.
And, just, my husband and I are really into tennis, and we don't get to play that. We play every week, but with a coach. But when I first started playing years ago, I had this tennis coach, and she was from New York, and she was adorable. And her name was Alice, and she said, and every time I would miss a shot in the lesson, I would go, oh, darn,
Mm-hmm.
And she would say to me, Dianne, don't have a mini depression after every shot. Just get back, put your racket back, and swing. Next point,
Yeah.
So that's like a saying that we use, right? Like whenever we get into a bad state, and we say, we don't have to be stuck in this reality, right in this moment. You could be in an argument or something with those you love the most. And then we say, okay, next point. And it's that you want to know how not to be that way? Don't be that way. Next point, move into another state because you know you can. That's creating reality.
We're talking with Dianne Collins, and she is telling us about how to quantum think. Do you quantum think? Title of the book, DianneCollins.com, and that's Dianne with two N's, folks, two N's. We'll be linked to your website as well, so we hope that people will go to your website and find out more about the work that you are doing regarding quantum think. And this is Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And you mentioned about choices, and of course we talk about choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And we encourage people to listen to these programs and realize that you always have choices. You may not know what they are right now, and that's why you need to get educated. And I'm not talking about the 12 years of primary and secondary or even post. I'm talking about learning about what is out there. If we know that we have the potentiality for all of these different human attributes or tools, if you will, then we can go out and do a lot of stuff. But you raised something, Dianne, I got to touch upon before we wrap this up. We may be here another 10 minutes for all I know, but I'm going to bring this up anyway.
Okay.
There is an old saying that you can't change other people, and I found out that's a lie. It is a bold-faced, old way of thinking lie. And you know why? It's because of what you have been talking about. If we are connected and we begin the process to consciously quantum think, okay, and we are interconnected just as we are on the internet, only on a spiritual level, on a consciousness level, on the one mind level. And we resonate a certain vibration when we are in a certain state. I won't say emotion, but state. And the people around us are going to be potentially influenced by our vibration that we put out in the state we're in. Then they're either going to be drawn to us, sort of the law of attraction, because they want more of what we have. They would like to have that state too. Or they're going to be those who are not consciously thinking. They're reacting, and they want to get just as far away from us as they possibly can. Now, that's changing people, okay? But we are not, our intent is not to do it consciously. Our intent is not to change people. It is not up to us. It's up to them. It's like the third phase that I went through of a particular individual over the previous 4 years. And I got to the place where I was able to say, what is it that you're so afraid of that you behave this way? I'm not asking you to change, okay? I need to understand why you are like this so that I can understand it, put it to the side, and move on. That's the reason. You can continue to behave in whatever way you want. That is your life. That is your choice. You have as much human right to behave in the way that you do as I do. Okay? Whether I like it or not doesn't matter. Okay? But I want to understand. And that's where I'm coming from. So isn't the reality that when we start to quantum think, we will change the lives of the people around us? Some at a greater level, some at a lesser level, but they are going to change as we change.
Yes. Let me say it a slightly different way. First of all, the other aspect of a quantum worldview that we're not used to relating this way, because we're brought up to see, as Einstein, the particles and not the field, but we exist in fields. So exactly what you're saying, Richard, we exist in relational fields. It's why you can, as you said, somebody can walk in a room, they didn't hear a word you said, but they get a good vibe or a bad vibe, and they're either attracted there because they're in the similar simpatico frequency range or not and run out of them. So we influence fields. Now, the reason I think people would say we can't change people because the old world way of thinking is manipulation, force, push, and pull. That is all of what comes, the thinking from the industrial age, most of it is still relevant, genius, and important in certain areas of life. But if you want to create reality, if you want to improve your relationships, if you want to feel good within yourself and feel you're in command in this, chaotic world that we're in today, then that takes something else. So can we change other people? We influence. That's the word I would say.
Okay.
We can shift the state. And I'll tell you a real world example that I did the other day that, and I told my husband afterwards, well, my husband is a really good tennis player. And he was, we were doubles partners playing against this other people that we play with every week. And the other day, Saturday, he was playing really poorly, just had some dental work, whatever. And so I was in my unaware intent emanation. And I was thinking, oh, come on, Alan, get it together. You're making it. I had all those thoughts that we have, all the judgments. And then I caught myself. Now, this is the thing. It's not like you become, all of a sudden, well, you are perfect, but going back to the perfection in the Bible, but different type, because being in command, as I say, mastery, it's a moment by moment proposition. Transformation is not a one-time event, and mastery is, not forever. It's moment by moment in the moment. So in the moment, I saw myself making him wrong, and I realized, wait a minute, what am I sending out in this energy field? I made a choice right in that moment to send him, this kind of sounds like BS, but it's actually verbatim true. And it just happened the other day. And I thought, I'm going to create the intent and send him really good energy and see him, because I knew he was a little down because of the dental thing. And that's what I did. I sent him I consciously generated energetic in the field between us that we were in. And I tell you this, he immediately started playing his A game. And that's true. So when you say, can we change people? It wasn't like I went up to him, I said, come on, Alan, you got to play better. Of course, he would never hear that from me. So I wouldn't even have an opportunity to do that. But it's like, not like you change people like that. But as you say, I shifted my state. If you're in a state of making someone wrong, even if it's not voiced, right?
Right.
In the open, that energetic is being received. Right. Because we are in connection.
Right.
So when we see that we're doing that and we're wondering why is this person acting so mean? Or why is this person acting like a jerk? Or, I always say, people go to France and they go, oh, the Parisians, they're so rude. Well, other people go and they go, oh, the Parisians, they're so lovely. Why? Because that's for another show. The core distinction of QuantumThink and the quantum world, observer effect. We live in an observer created reality. What you bring to your observation is what you generate as an emanation. It's what you resonate. It's what you attract.
And I'll go back and say once again that we do not change other people consciously. It's just by virtue of our evolving, our raising our consciousness that, what was the word that you used? Influences? Say again?
Effects.
Effects,
it's more
yes.
than influence.
Yeah.
It's a very deep effect.
Yeah.
It's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not a cause and effect.
No. And again,
right.
And our intent must stay on ourselves as far as, I want to improve me. That's what I want to do. It's not that I don't care about you, don't get me wrong, but I have to work on me. If I'm going to make this world a better place, I got to make me a better person. And that's what we're talking about here with Dianne Collins about QuantumThink. Do you QuantumThink? Get a copy of the book at DianneCollins.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the great outlets. And Dianne is spelled with 2 N's, and you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. And as I always do at the end of these programs, Dianne, I always ask the 3 fundamental questions that I've asked you probably 3 or 4 times, and sometimes the answers change. So I'm going to ask the questions of you again here on the program as we wrap things up. But before I do, I want to talk to you, the listener and the viewer, and I want to remind you that we're here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. But don't forget about the 9 a.m. Wednesday edition. It's a special edition of Tell Me Your Story, 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. We have podcasts of all of these programs, the long form, the entire interview. This one is over an hour and 10 minutes right now, and you're going to want to tune in to the whole interview, get all the information, as well as go to DianneCollins.com. But I also want to remind you that we are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry. We're also on iHeart and Amazon Music, as well as many other places. And we're also on YouTube. Tell Me Your Story is the name of the channel on YouTube, where you can subscribe, where you can watch these interviews and get to know us a little better, I think. We also encourage you that if you're able to do so and you like what we're bringing you, the conversations we're having, the information that we're bringing you, and you can support us financially, we would be so grateful for any support that you can send our way. Any amount is welcome. All you have to do is go to PayPal, go to the send link, and then put in the email address richard@richarddugan.com. There's also a link on the homepage of richarddugan.com where you can just click and boom, it takes you there. So whatever you can do, thank you, and also participate in the decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, where you can go within, get the answers you need for yourself, and only for you. You don't get answers for other people, because it's your inner voice. It's your inner life, okay? And get to know who you are. I know, we've talked about it before. It can get kind of scary going in there because we do have a dark side as well as a light side. But you need to know all about who you are, because that's what makes you who you are. You cannot get rid of any part of who you were, of your past, of your history. Perceptions can change, but the actual events that took place, you can't change those. You can change the way you look at them. And maybe we'll talk about that on another program, Dianne, as we talk more about QuantumThink. So with all of that being said, first of the three questions are, as always, who is Dianne Collins?
Oh. As I was just writing it the other day, I like to think of myself as a girl with a new point of view. And today I would say I like to just think of it that way because I like to give a point of view that will always work for everyone, and particularly dedicated to everyone being a masterful being on this planet.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve with the work that you are doing now?
Exactly that. Quantum thinking, that we live in a quantum thinking world. And, not because it's like that little channel book. It came through me. I didn't one day say, oh, I think I'll create a new system of thinking. It was like I got the cosmic tap on the shoulder and to get this out. And so what I want to achieve is through people expanding the way that they think, the way that they relate to themselves and reality and each other, that we have a harmonious, productive, joyful, blissed out world.
And finally, maybe the same answer. What is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose, right? It's all related, but if I put it into something more individualistic, of something that continues to invigorate me, it is that we go from, as a humanity, from merely knowing the wisdom conceptually, all the wisdom is available to us, 6,000 plus years of it, to that we go from knowing it to actually living it, to being the walking, talking embodiments of our highest, most divine, beautiful nature.
Dianne Collins, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. I really do appreciate the time that you've given us on this edition of Tell Me Your Story. And it's a guarantee, folks. You will be back. We will have you back again to talk more about this, dive more into intuition and also some of the other areas we haven't had a chance to get into, because there's a lot to cover in QuantumThink. Do You Quantum Think's the title of the book. And again, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal.